I hope you're all doing well today. Welcome to Mangalore, a city where diverse cultures, languages, and traditions converge to create a vibrant tapestry of heritage. Nestled between the Arabian Sea and the Western Ghats, Mangalore is known by many names: Kudla in Tulu, Maikala in Bari, Kodiyal in Konkani, and Mangaluru in Kannada. Often called the Rome of the East for its historical and aesthetic beauty of its architecture. This region is also home to profound philosophical traditions. Nearby Udupi, we have 5 M's or more than that: Mat, Krishna Mat, Madhva, Masala Dosa, Matsya, Malpe Beach, Mary's Island, and so on. The birthplace of Madhvacharya, founder of the Dvaita school of Vedanta, and also in Mudubidri, known as Jaina Kashi for its ancient Jain temples. On this august occasion, I, Reverend Josephine Pravin D'Souza, am delighted to welcome you all to St. Joseph's Interdiocesan Seminary, Chippo, for the 47th ACPI Annual Conference on the theme Hope, Philosophizing from Multi Horizons. Saint John of the Cross, a Catholic saint, says, "The more a soul has a hope, the more she will be in union with God." When we contemplate the divine, we realize that the greater our hope, the more we receive from Him. Indeed, the act of prayer itself is a powerful expression of hope, opening our hearts to the possibilities that God has in store for us. The students of Sandesha, Foundation for Culture and Education, will help us to lift our spirits to God through a Bharatanatyam.
Janana janana tanana tanana tom, janana janana tanana tanana tom, janana janana tanana tanana janana janana tanana tanana tom tom, janana janana tanana tanana tom tom, janana janana tanana tanana geeta dhuni ko takadhim na trikita tom naach rahe gori taai dai dai dadum tiragadum geeta dhuni ko takadhim na trikita tom naach rahe gori taai dai dai dadum tiragadum geeta dhuni ko takadhim na trikita tom naach rahe gori taai dai dai dadum tiragadum geeta dhuni ko takadhim. Tay 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 taan gaave takatal tay 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 taan gaave takatal tay 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 takatana dheem takida takadheem dheem takida takadheem dheem takida takadheem hadato hadakita dhumi ko takadheem. तुम्हारी लीला पदुमनाभ तुम्हारी लीला क्या कहूँ मैं सावरो ताप संकट शरणायो सो हमारो तुम हरो ताप संकट शरणायो सो हमारो तुम हरो. Tadim tadim tirana దని తతాని తాని తదిం తదిం తిరన తదిం తదిం తిరన దని తతాని తాని తదిం తదిం తిరన తాని తోం తదగ తదరి తతాన దర తానదిం అలరి గలరి తదగ తార తదగమం తాని తదగతాం తార దిం 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 తకతన అలరి తోం 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 తకతన తని అలరి గీత ధునికు తకధీం నాద్రికిట తోం నాచ రహి గోరి తాది దై తై తోం తిరగతోం గీత ధునికు తకధీం నాద్రికిట తోం నాచ రహి గోరి తాది దై తై తోం తిరగతోం తాది దై తై తోం తిరగతోం తాది దై తై తోం తిరగతోం గీత ధునికు తకధీం నికు తకధీం నికు తకధీం.
Thank you, dear students, for your prayer dance, which has beautifully embodied the grace and devotion of our conference. The preamble of the Indian Constitution serves as a beacon of hope, reflecting the values and aspirations of our diverse nation. It emphasizes our unwavering commitment to justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Let us now rise and recite the powerful words of the preamble, which encapsulate the vision that unites us as a nation. Kindly find the preamble in your booklet, page number 1. It's also presented in the show here. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution. Kindly be seated. Thank you everyone for showing your patriotism by reciting the sacred words of preamble. Chanakya said, "The fragrance of flowers spreads only in the direction of the wind, but the goodness of a person spreads in all directions." In this spirit, I now respectfully invite Reverend Father Rector Dr. Ronald Serravo and Reverend Dr. Ivan D'Souza, the Chief Organizer and the Local Secretary of ACPI, to kindly lead our esteemed dignitaries to the dais. Let us give a round of applause when they come to the dais. I now request Reverend Father Rector to extend a warm and gracious welcome to all present.
Your Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. Peter Paul Saldana, Bishop of Mangalore Diocese, Chairman of the Board of Administration of the Seminary, and President of today's program, Honorable Professor P.L. Dharma, Vice Chancellor, Mangalore University, Dr. Parinita, HOD, Department of English, Mangalore University, Reverend Dr. John Peter Vallabhadas, President, Association of Christian Philosophers of India, distinguished guests, President and faculty members of St. Joseph's Institute of Philosophy and Theology, principals, professors, lecturers, teachers of colleges and educational centers, students, media friends, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and a warm welcome to you all. It's a matter of great joy to have so many eminent persons in our campus for the 47th conference of ACPI to create an environment of hope from multi directions. The month of October is a very nice one. The weather in Mangalore is pleasant. I'm sure this weather will inspire you to philosophize better and enhance your hope as you move on with your philosophical deliberations of the conference. This conference is a joint venture of ACPI and Chair in Christianity, Mangalore University. ACPI has been active since its establishment in 1976 with annual research conferences at different places of India, while the Chair in Christianity has been functioning since its formation in 1987, fostering studies in philosophy, religion, ethics, and in social harmony. Dr. Ivan D'Souza, the local organizer of ACPI, is also the head of and professor in Chair in Christianity. We are glad that Mangalore University here is well represented by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Dharma, HOD of English, Professor Parinita, and other professors. Dear professors, we feel proud and honored by your presence. On behalf of the seminary, I extend to you a warm and joyful welcome. The organizing committee has planned to welcome the guest with a book and a shawl. Therefore, now I request Dr. John Peter Vallabhadas, President of ACPI, to welcome Bishop Peter Paul, the President of this program, with a shawl and a book. Father Francis D'Souza, one of our faculty members of St. Joseph Institute of Philosophy, will now welcome Dr. John Peter, ACPI President. Brother Derek Mascarenas, a student coordinator of this conference, will now welcome Dr. Ivan D'Souza, the local organizer of ACPI and head and professor of Chair in Christianity. We are glad that Mangalore University is represented by Vice Chancellor Professor Dharma, HOD, and also English Professor. Now I request Father Joseph Martis to welcome the Vice Chancellor. Lily Pereira, Provincial Superior, a Bethany sister, and one of the faculty members of St. Joseph Institute of Philosophy. Now welcome Dr. Parinita, Mangalore University. I acknowledge the presence of distinguished professors, head of the departments of different university, colleges, educational centers, especially St. Aloysius. We have Dr. Rajalakshmi, Dr. Jerlin Pinto, Dr. Rajaram Tolpadi, and students from various educational institutes, Roshan Nilaya, St. Agnes. We welcome all of them cordially. Swagatam, Suswagatam. Dear friends, I feel obliged to say a few words about the venue of this conference to our guests who have come here for the first time. St. Joseph's Interdiocesan Seminary, with a history almost of 150 years, is interdiocesan in nature. Though it belongs to the Diocese of Mangalore, Calicut, Kannur, and Udupi, we do have students coming from different parts of the country, making it even a national institute. The Italian Jesuits of Venice province established this institute here in 1879 and managed it efficiently for over a century. Since 1995, the administration of the seminary has been monitored by the Board of Administration of Bishops. The Bishop of Mangalore Diocese, currently Bishop Peter Paul Saldana, being its chairman. We have both philosophy and theology institutes with their graduation program. The Philosophy Institute is affiliated to Dharmaram Vidyakshetram Bangalore and the Theology Institute to the Urban University Rome. We have 15 resident professors, 30 visiting, and 150 students studying both in philosophy and theology. We are proud to say that 3 of our students who have gone to their eternal reward are already servants of God and waiting to be declared saints one day. 53 of our students have become bishops, interestingly 3 of them in this calendar year, and over 300 students have become priests and are serving both in and outside the country. We are trying our best to form effective spiritual leaders by imparting quality education in human, spiritual, academic, and pastoral areas. Lest the seminary formation becomes theoretical and abstract, we send our students of theology for pastoral service to various parish churches on weekends, and the students of philosophy for social service on Sundays. In order to educate our people in matters theological, we also have several courses in religion for the laity, both in English and Konkani. We have also a candle making unit and host and particle making unit. We do not lag behind in appreciating environmental issues in and beyond our campus. Seminary also is a place of culture. We do have a good library, a modest museum, and other facilities to promote artistic pursuit of language studies with academies, publications like Jos Kiran, a journal of philosophy and theological thought, Prakashalaya, a center for media and evangelization. Dear friends, I am very happy that you have come from far and near to our institution for study and reflection on hope. I wish that your hope may grow and bear fruit in abundance, especially in these 3 days. By the hope of today, be the hope of today and of tomorrow for the world that needs it so greatly. Once again, welcoming you cordially and assuring you our goodwill to make your stay comfortable here. I remain. God bless you all.
Thank you, dear Father Rector, for your cordial welcome. And I extend to you a heartfelt and gracious welcome to you, dear Father. I now invite Reverend Dr. Jose Pennaparambil, ACPI Executive Committee member, to present you with a book and a shawl. Thank you, Father. The title of the book that was gifted as a token of welcome to the dignitaries is Between Hope and Despair, 100 Ethical Reflections on Contemporary India by Rajiv Bhargava. As we prepare to light the lamp, let us reflect on the profound wisdom of the ancient mantra from Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityurma Amritangamaya. These sacred lines invite us to seek truth in the face of untruth, light amid darkness, and life in the presence of death. I now respectfully invite the dignitaries on the dais to kindly proceed with the lighting of the lamp, officially inaugurating this ACPI conference.
शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः रविरस्तं समारभ्य यावत् सूर्योदयो भवेत् रविरस्तं समारभ्य यावत् सूर्योदयो भवेत् यस्य तिष्ठे गृहे दीपः तस्य नास्ति दरिद्रता शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते.
Kindly be seated. Thank you, spreading light of hope by lighting the lamp and officially inaugurating the program. May I now request Reverend Dr. John Peter Vallabhadas, the esteemed President of the Association of Christian Philosophers of India, to address this gathering, to present the report of ACPI and offer the introductory remarks.
Good morning, respected dignitaries, ACPI members, and conference participants. In the absence of our ACPI secretary, I like to give you the report of ACPI seminar last year. The 46th annual research seminar of ACPI was held from 21st to 23rd October 2023 at Jnana Niketan Institute of Philosophy and Religion, Little Flower Seminary, Alva, Kerala. The theme of the conference was Engulfing Presence of Artificial Intelligence, Philosophical Reflections of its Challenges and Opportunities. The seminar was organized well by the host institution. There were 98 participants at the seminar, ranging from the professors and PhD scholars to masters and bachelor's level students from various institutes of philosophy across India. The book in the 22nd annual series of ACPI, titled Emancipative Education, Policies and Practices, edited by Dr. Raju Felix Krasta, was released by the chief guest, Most Reverend Joseph Karil, the Bishop of Cochin. The volume featured 18 papers which were presented at the 45th Research Seminar at Morningstar College, Kolkata, from 14th to 16th October 2022 on the same theme. Another book, fifth special series of the ACPI, was also published, which was titled Thinking the Human and the Pandemic, Philosophical Reflections on Pandemic Phenomenology, edited by Dr. Jojo Joseph, CST. The special volume featured 13 papers which were presented during ACPI organized webinars during and after COVID-19 pandemic. In his inaugural address, Bishop Joseph Karil stressed the need for a careful examination and adoption of new technological developments with artificial intelligence. Enhancing the lives of people is a priority of all scientific and technological growth. Dr. Jojo Joseph, Superior General of the Little Flower Congregation, in his felicitation speech, congratulated the ACPI efforts to philosophize the growing trends of artificial intelligence. In his special address, Bishop Thomas Padiath wished ACPI all the best for contextual and timely reflection on issues related to artificial intelligence. The keynote address given by Professor Dr. Santosh Kumar from Cochin University of Science and Technology was enlightening to many participants in understanding the rapid growth of AI technologies. His erudite and technical address was not only informative, but made the participants aware of the potential opportunities and challenges posed by the new AI technologies. There were 21 papers presented in all, and there were also 11 students' responses to some of those papers. The proceedings of the seminar are to be released in a few minutes. ACPI is grateful to all the contributors and especially the editor, Dr. Stephen Jayard, and the publisher, Christian World Imprints, New Delhi. The participants enjoyed the hospitality of the staff and students of Jnana Niketan. The cultural program presented by the candidates of nearby convents and the philosophy students of the seminary was enjoyed with enthusiasm by the participants. We are grateful to Dr. Agustin Pampalani, all the staff and students of Jnana Niketan for efficiently organizing the seminar. In the General Assembly, all the members were unanimous in their opinion to give impetus to working towards the publication of a revised and enlarged edition of ACPI Encyclopedia of Philosophy under the general editorship of Dr. Johnson Puthanpurakal, supported by the governing body of the ACPI and the team of editors. We had 2 meetings in this year of the editor-in-chief and the associate editors, one for 4 days at Kotagiri in the month of May, to finalize the themes and proposed by the members and to finalize the list of possible sub-editors for different sections. The second meeting was held in month of August at Kolkata to compile all the themes, both revised themes from the first edition and the proposed new themes for the enlarged edition, and for finalizing the ways and means of meeting all the expenses of the publication and printing, for approaching Professor Amartya Sen for writing a foreword and many other details. The ongoing special seminar series honoring the founding member president of ACPI, Professor Richard Dismuth, on the theme of Indian Christian philosophizing, thinking along with and beyond Richard Dismuth, has been continued with the seminars, which was started with a webinar in February 2023. We had one seminar in this year on the 24th of August at Gurukul IMS Institute of Philosophy at Varanasi. We hope to have few more in the coming year and bring out a special volume in the honor of Professor Richard Smith. The proposal to hold this year's seminar on hope, philosophizing from multi-horizons at St. Joseph's Seminary, Jabu, Mangalore, was well received by the rector staff who are so generous enough to host this event in collaboration with the Chair of Christianity, Mangalore University, with Dr. Ivan D'Souza as an organizing secretary. At the outset, thanks to all of you organizing this conference and those of you participating. We look forward to a rich series of presentations, responses, questions, discussions, culture programs, and informal interactions during the next few days ahead. Wishing you all, in the name of the governing and the executive body of ACPI, for your active support of the ACPI and its project, I remain warmest welcome and thank you.
Dear friends, I want to communicate one sorrowful news. Father of Dr. John Peter Vallabhadas, Mr. Raphael Vallabhadas, died last night. He reached his hopeful end. Still, he has come here and helped us to read out the report and explain about the ACPI procedures. He will be leaving soon after this inaugural session. We stand for a while and pray silently for the repose of his father's soul. May he reach a hopeful end, lead a blissful life, and enjoy the eternal peace of the Father. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Reverend Dr. John Vallabhadas, for presenting the report and for your introductory remarks. We also assure our prayers in these painful times. I would like to formally request Dr. Stephen S. Jayad, the editor of the ACPI work we are about to unveil, Engulfing Presence of Artificial Intelligence, to come forward and introduce the book.
Pleasant morning, everyone. Cordial greetings to Most Reverend Peter Paul Saldana, the president of this inaugural ceremony, Professor P.L. Dharma, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Mangalore University, all other respected dignitaries on and off the dais, and my dear friends. I deem it my privilege to introduce to this august gathering the volume Engulfing Presence of Artificial Intelligence, Philosophical Reflections on its Challenges and Opportunities, a collection of the proceedings of the ACPI Research Seminar held last year in Alva, Kerala. Of the 21 papers presented in that seminar, except Dr. Agustin Pamplani's paper, AI is a misnomer, intersection of the artificial, natural, virtual, and the spiritual. All the other 20 papers are included in this volume. The papers are roughly categorized according to the themes and issues explored into 4 categories as papers with philosophical reflections, ethical considerations, psycho-spiritual deliberations, and socio-political implications. The categorization is, of course, only a pedagogical tool, not a watertight demarcation, as some papers involve reflections on diverse areas. Today, artificial intelligence, my dear friends, as we all know, is found everywhere and everything. It's a multidimensional phenomenon. Apart from the obvious socio-political and moral issues, there are also deeper metaphysical questions to be dealt with regarding AI. If AI is artificial and intelligent, to what extent is it artificial? To what extent is it intelligent? What's the difference between being natural and artificial? Can the concepts of intelligence and consciousness, which are hitherto spoken only in the context of human beings be now applied to machines also? If at all artificial or mechanical intelligence is possible, how will it be different from natural or human intelligence? Will this artificial intelligence replace human intelligence and eventually eliminate human intelligence one day? If so, what will happen to the dignity, free will, spiritual nature, and the destiny of human beings? In this regard, Professor Kuruvilla Pandikattu, who is also amidst us, makes a meaningful caution. Thea Deshardin, a prominent Jesuit paleontologist, saw humans as evolution becomes conscious of itself. But now, it's unfortunate that evolution is capable of consciously extending itself and even capable of annihilating itself with its technological developments. Is it not alarming? What can we do collectively and individually as academicians, philosophers, priests and religious, responsible citizens, and as people of goodwill? This volume, ACPI is confident, will provoke the readers to seriously reflect on AI and get into constructive actions. ACPI sincerely hopes and prays that humanity increasingly becomes aware of its sublime call and essential duty to be conscious of human dignity and identity, to ensure the holistic growth of humanity at large, to protect nature, to be aware of the limits and limitations of reason and rationality, and to be profoundly mindful of morality, values, and faith, which are generally not given due importance in the scientific enterprises. Yes, my dear friends, to create a holistic humanity is the need of the hour. As we release this volume, I'd like to sincerely thank Professor Prajit K. Pasu, retired professor, Central University of Hyderabad, for writing a meaningful and succinct foreword for this volume with the title Humans Tryst with AI. He is in long association with Gyanadeepa Pune. On a personal note, with his double PhDs in chemistry and philosophy, he could guide me in my doctoral research in philosophy of science. So he is literally my friend, guide, and philosopher. We thank and appreciate him for all his help and guidance. We must also thank all those who contributed a research paper for this volume. We all know it's more demanding to submit a paper in black and white than orally presenting it during a conference. In spite of their regular academic assignments, administrative responsibilities, and pastoral obligations, all the contributors sent in the final draft of their papers on time, which made the job of the editor a pleasant task. Thank you very much, dear contributors. A special word of thanks and appreciation to Christian World Imprints for their elegant work for this volume. As their motto goes, serving the best in the most enthusiastic and productive way. They're always prompt and productive, professional and friendly in all their business dealings. Since 2016, they are publishing our ACPI's volumes. It must be mentioned here, for their publications, CWI always takes up only books of high standard and great quality. That is why they have published 3 of my books also. Thank you very much, dear CWI publishers. Brother Jeffrey Sebastian, a student of the 3rd year philosophy at Gyanadeepa, Pune, helped us with the designing of a suitable cover picture for this book. Sincere thanks to him as well. Finally, I'd like to thank Dr. John Peter, the President, the Executive Committee, the stalwarts of all the members of ACPI, who entrusted me with a wonderful opportunity of editing this annual series number 23. I'd like to especially acknowledge Dr. John Peter's help in various ways to bring out this volume. We have made sure that this volume is error-free, but still, there can be 1 or 2 errors, minor errors here and there, because after all, this volume is not edited by artificial intelligence, but edited by a human who claims to be intelligent. Thank you. Over to the organizers.
Thank you, dear Father. It's an honor to have this important work released by His Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. Peter Paul Saldana, and to present the first copy to the distinguished Vice Chancellor, Professor P.L. Dharma. Thank you and kindly be seated. The book is available today at a special release price of 400 rupees. Later on, it will be available at 550 rupees. The actual retail price set at 650 rupees. We request you to take advantage of this limited time offer and try to deepen your knowledge on a relevant subject. It's my honor and privilege to introduce our esteemed chief guest, Professor P.L. Dharma, the Vice Chancellor of Mangalore University. Professor Dharma began his academic journey with a master's degree in political science in 1988, where he graduated with first rank from Karnataka University, followed by his PhD in 1994. He joined Mangalore University that same year and has since dedicated 36 years to teaching and research in the Department of Political Science. Beyond his role as a professor, Professor Dharma has held a series of key administrative positions at Mangalore University. He served as chairman of the Department of Political Science, registrar in charge and registrar of evaluation, where he made significant contributions to the university's development. One of his most notable achievements was the introduction and implementation of the in-house online examination software MooLinks, which streamlined the examination process and ensured transparency. His leadership in digitalizing university ledgers from 1981 to 2000 using advanced technology showcases his forward-thinking approach to administration. Professor Dharma's contribution to education have not gone unnoticed, bagging him several prestigious awards, including the Excellence and Leadership Award in Education 2020 and Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Rashtriya Puraskar. He was also recognized as one of the best teachers in 2023 for his outstanding service to students and the academic community. Most recently, in March 2024, Professor Dharma was honored as the best professor in political science for his excellence and leadership in education. It is an honor to welcome him as the chief guest of our conference today. Over to you, dear sir.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ. I don't know how many of you know Kannada, but that's the way in which we start talking. Most Reverend Dr. Peter Paul Saldana, Bishop of Mangalore, seeking your blessings. My colleague Dr. Parinita, all the dignitaries on the dais, on the visitors to Mangalore from different places, different parts of India. Welcome to Mangalore. And as the anchor introduced, not just the topography of Mangalore, but also the different confluence of culture. Mangalore is always there to attract you, welcome you, to see and also experience what Mangalore is all about. I'm extremely happy to be here, to be part of the very important conference, that is the 47th Annual Research Conference, where larger number of issues which needs a fundamental answer today is being debated for the next 2 days. Extremely happy to see some of the very crucial areas are being highlighted here by the experts. And then I thought, let me also be part and then listen to some of those wonderful lectures going to be delivered by the experts as well. Reverend Father Bishop Sir, I was here almost 7 years ago, talking to our friends from different parts of country, but I spoke on a very different issue last time. And that was the time when Mangalore was really hot, absolutely, though the weather was praised by Father. That was the time when Mangalore was absolutely attracting the attention of larger number of people of not only this country but also outside, where few tensions were there between the communities. And here was a seminar, that was a conference that was organized where I was also invited to be part, and then I spoke. A respected Bishop Sir remembers what exactly happened during that time. But when I came for the 47th Annual Research Conference, I saw something very, very different. A Bharatanatyam, where the traditional legacy was also brought in here. And when the light, that was a lamp was, when the lamp was used here, Agni, particularly reminding of all that what we spoke in Upanishads, a background music, Shabda, that was of a very famous flutist, Golkandi. And then the Constitution's preamble. What a wonderful, wonderful design of the program, inauguration, very novel inauguration. Extremely happy to see that things have changed here. Extremely happy to see that the things are also calling the attention of larger number of people. You are also saying that it is going to be a multicultural kind of multi-horizons, which is something very nice. And then the context is hope. After having seen the preamble of the Constitution, after having seen the Bharatanatyam and lighting the lamp, and then the kind of the music, the presence of the very Reverend Bishop here, and the visiting of all the, your visit to Mangalore from different parts of country, I feel that I have a great hope to live happily here in this country, because this country, therefore, still creates a hope, still gives you a hope to be happy, to live happily, and to be always accommodative of all that what we call is multicultural or a diversity. My dear participants, I wanted to speak to you about at least 3 things which I've been teaching for the last few decades. There is a subject here. One of the speakers are going to speak on Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor is one subject which we have been teaching in the department. And we understand what exactly Taylor was talking about, multiculturalism. And there is one more which I think is very important, Immanuel Kant, absolutely interesting. I thought that let me also speak of some of those things where duty of ethics, which becomes very important as a political science teacher to me. And the third, which I thought was very important, was Sartre, which I thought was something very important for us, because in political science, we don't see political science, we don't philosophize political science without Sartre, particularly focusing on existentialism. But when once I was given a book called Hope and Despair of Rajiv Bhargav, Professor Tulpadi's guru, Professor Tulpadi is here, then I thought, let me just, in given time to me, let me speak few words of the book, which I think is absolutely very important. I don't know who has thought about it. You really made all our day today. Thank you so much for this. I don't know how many of you have read it. At least few issues, and then I'll stop. What a wonderful book to start with. We started with Bishop's note. Thank you for your blessings. At least to give you a small idea, and then I'll come back to the preamble. Our nation, our constitution, and one of the most important thing in the book, which fascinates all of us, is why have faith in the great Indian experiment. My dear friends, I want to do a small experiment with Sartre, Kant, and then Charles Taylor, and see how all these things gets reflected in Gandhi. I wanted to also say how some of those most important components of Upanishads have been helping us, have been all the time encouraging us to build institutions so that we have greater hopes to accommodate our diversity, greater hopes to live together, greater hopes to sacrifice many of our things, particularly ego. And the experiment which Raju Bhargav tells about is something which Gandhi was trying to do, every time in the name of truth, in experimenting with, in search of truth, which is something is absolutely important. We were told most of you study philosophy. We were told that you are doing your research. We were also told that you have been engaged in large number of academic exercise, and one exercise I saw is the kind of volume that you have brought in where you speak on artificial intelligence. I have a small request now to also, this is only a request from Mangalore University, request from an ordinary citizen, that to have an hope, to have hope to live happily here, to have a hope so that, we manage our differences, we need to create a conducive atmosphere here. All of us are here is not simply to hope, is to carry on a major responsibility so that large number of our youngsters can have hope to live happily throughout their life. When the Constitution's preamble was recited by all of us, instead of usually the prayers that are sung in, I still believe there are many things that we need to do. Look at the kind of the oaths that we take when we sing, when we recite the preamble of the Constitution. My dear sirs and friends here, all the respected reverend fathers here, India has been one of those countries where, people have experimented a very different kind of, life. Of late, we have understood in India, what we need to do is today is to go to an extent of sacrificing large number of our priorities. As long as, we carry our priorities, as long as we become too much of individualistic, as long as we refuse to compromise and always believe that, it is I rather than anybody else, I think things will go wrong. For the last 7 decades of experiments in India, what we have understood is that most of us have refused to change. Conference after conference, seminars after seminars, prayers after prayers, we have proved ourselves that, we do not want to change. And then we want to stick on to certain dogmas, which define our identity here. What does the preamble says? The preamble says that it is not just you, there are also others. It is not just I. I have to also understand there are a larger number of people who live here who have an equal opportunity here, equal rights here, and equal authority over what is existing, what is available. Neither the policymakers nor the leaders have realized the truth, and that's one of the reasons why we have failed our own democracy here. I also see a component where, one of the speakers is going to speak on democracy also. The theme that is being given to us in the preamble that was just recited by all of us is that we have a small democracy to handle, like a child. It's a small democracy to handle. And how do we handle democracy today? Give space to large number of voices that are not being heard. And then we are known for snubbing, crushing, demolishing the voices of large number of people whose voice have never been heard in democracy here. And we have been absolutely having the right over the others, saying that my voice, I think, has to survive here rather than yours. In democracy, we've also seen large number of undemocratic practices, and that's one of the reasons why today, whenever the philosophizing process takes place, Gandhi becomes absolutely important. Most of the time we thought we will answer by giving a different kind of counters. Either we have visualized our, arguments, either we thought, we need to demonstrate it in a different way, and the right and protest, and sometimes also demonstrate the colors. Color makes difference here in India. But Gandhi goes different way. He maintains silence. And we never do this in India today. And there is a component that is also going to be discussed here. And we only thought that, like Upanishad does, silence becomes one of the most important things where, we all learn what our internal is. And we don't like silence today. We need to make awaz every time. We want to scream. We want to see that deliberately we distract the others here in this country. I've seen today in India, sound matters in a big way. And a very different sounds matters in a different way. Last time when I came here, I continued to say that, and I hold on to that with due respect to Bishop here. The sounds matter so much. It is not that, your sound, is heard by you. Your sound is heard by you. Now I have decided that my sound is heard by somebody else. And this is very, very different sound is all the time. And what is that sound is of mine? My sound is of my religion. And I want to say very, 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 very clearly that I want somebody else who do not belong to my religion hear my sound, that my religious sound is much more superior than other. Sound becomes a matter today, my dear friends. When the entire philosophical discourse in India tells us that the silence sometimes, being submissive to something which is unknown, is also sometimes a great, is also a great thing to happen, great value, moral principle. We have failed doing that, and the democracy in India becomes so successful in destroying that silence and highlighting the sound today. The sounds are designed by not only the sound engineers, sounds are designed by religious heads today. Your calculations have gone wrong. All your social calculations have gone wrong. All your research has gone wrong. Your data that is being collected on anthropological issues have gone wrong. How can I hope today? How can I hope today to live happily tomorrow? I have a big problem in doing this. Every next day, we come out with a new experiment of new sounds. Earlier it was color. We played with in 80s and 90s, we played with color. Colors came and then completely dominated the roads and the buildings and everywhere. Now the sounds. And each one of us have a different sounds to be aired and then forced to listen to sometimes, even if you are not able to. The last thing that I want to tell you, my dear friends, ask questions on your own because it is research. Ask yourself, on your own. What is there to, offer today in India to have hopes? Who offers this to all of us? You agree that we are all multicultural, and then you don't want to be with anybody else. You agree that, we have diversity, but you don't want to be compromising with anybody else. You agree that, God is there everywhere, omnipotent, but you don't want to give space to God, and then you dominate the God's presence everywhere. And I'm little worried today, what will happen to our young generation? All the youngsters here, hoping that, they will all live happily, now need to question in a big way, why and then who will offer us the space where all of us can hope? Though I have not been little organized, I'm little confused with the diversity, I'm little confused with this multicultural, because I don't know, somebody has to intervene. State, anyway, we have not accepted. You don't want state to accept. At least if state were to be there, you have always questioned the authority of the state. Religious institutions, we have contradictions between them in a diversity, in a diverse country like this. Some leader, political leader, or at least some non-controversial leader, as Raju Bhargav says, a secular entity which is also being questioned today. When you started questioning everything, how can I have a hope to live happily today? How can I forge, a kind of relationship between this multicultural or multifaceted, or what you are saying is multi-horizons thinking pattern here? I hope 47th Annual Research Conference will come out with a very important agenda where we will have a level playing ground so that our difference, our diversity can work together, so that the younger generation will have a hope to live happily here, and all of us hope, not for anything else, at least that all of us live happily. I hope today our research conference, 47th Research Conference in Mangalore chapter, will come out with a wonderful agenda so that all of us will go together hand in hand. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm grateful to Church Christianity of Mangalore University, and the Mangalore University is here to see that in whatever way Mangalore University can go with you, we will be always with you. See that next week we are going to have an advisory committee. We have a certain new agenda to be added. I hope you will also accommodate them so that Mangalore University reaches more and more people rather than being what it has been for the last so many years. Thank you so much. Have a great time.
Thank you, respected sir, for your inspiring and hope-filled message. It's my honor to call upon our respected president for today's session, Most Reverend Dr. Peter Paul Saldana, the Bishop of Mangalore. A scholar and a spiritual leader, Bishop Saldana has made notable contribution to both the academic and pastoral dimensions of the church. His leadership as the shepherd of the Diocese of Mangalore is characterized by deep pastoral care, a commitment to social justice and interreligious dialogue through Bandhutva, and a focus on fostering spiritual growth within the community. Dear Bishop, we eagerly look forward for your presidential address, which will no doubt inspire us to embrace the message of hope as we embark on our journey as pilgrims of faith. Over to you, dear Bishop.
Respected Professor P.L. Dharma, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Mangalore University, respected Dr. Parinita, Head and Department of English, Mangalore University, Reverend Dr. Ronald Saravo, the Rector of St. Joseph's Interdiocesan Seminary, Reverend Dr. John Peter Vallabados, the President of ICPI, Reverend Dr. Ivan D'Souza, head of the chair in Christianity, and my dear august gathering, the speakers and participants. I am indeed delighted to be part of this conference organized by the Association of Christian Philosophers of India in collaboration with the Chair in Christianity, Mangalore University, with a meaningful theme, Hope, Philosophizing from Multi Horizons. It is not a coincidence, I believe, that this theme is chosen in a society which is pushing many people into despair. Incidentally, the book that is given is also regarding hope and despair. And the rate of suicide is increasing in India. And Pope Francis has called the coming year in the church as the year of the ordinary jubilee celebration of the birth of Jesus, the hope of the world. 2025 years ago, he was born, and he still enlightens the hearts and minds towards hope. Once I read an article that India has highest number of suicides in the world. Can you imagine that? And we live in that country. According to a National Crime Records Bureau report released this April 2024, 1.71 lakh people died by suicide in 2022 in India. The suicide rate has increased to 12.4 per 1 lakh people, the highest rate ever recorded in India. The common stressors in life are related to work, finances, relationship issues, and health. Even today, when I saw the papers, my eyes were just hitting on those events. Students' suicides have increased and they have surpassed the population growth rate in India. What a tragedy. I have visited a few families where suicides have taken place, and it takes a long years to recover from that shock. As an antidote to despair, we have hope in our hearts. Hope is a kind of elixir that gives meaning and purpose to life, and it gives the reason to live. Some believe in power and accumulating wealth and put their hope in the earthly goods. But sometimes in life, they feel they are not sufficient. And even those highly rich people, great entrepreneurs, businessmen, and those who shine on the screen, unfortunately commit suicide. I can't understand what is lacking. I sometimes wonder whether these people who are running daily up and down from one place to another, do they have a sense of purpose? What is it that makes us decide today, for us here, that I want to live today and I don't want to commit suicide? What is it that keeps me alive today? In every choice, we are somehow grappling with some existential questions. Why are we here? What makes our life worth living? What gives it a meaning and purpose? In the search of the answers of these existential questions, we fall back on our reflection, no doubt philosophical reflection, and also on the upbringing and faith tradition that we are brought up in. Those who lived through great hardships do teach us how hope gives meaning to life. Viktor Frankl, in his famous book, Man's Search for Meaning, which I have read at least twice and referred more than a few times, who lived through the horrors of Auschwitz. Being a psychiatrist himself, he had the opportunity to move from ward to ward and see the hopelessness and moral corruption, who came to face with death and degradation, saw the grim reality of the death camps when the trucks were carrying the bodies to the gas chamber. Yet, in spite of this grim reality, this man comes out with a positive note and wrote that book, Man's Search for Meaning. He describes how holding on to hope was literally a life or death choice. If you don't have hope, you don't have anything. Those who lost hope, he says, developed a certain look in their eyes, a glassy look, a fatalism that inevitably ended in death. They gave up eating, they gave up smiling, they gave up looking at the other face. They experienced a kind of an existential vacuum, a complete loss of meaning, a loss of hope, a sense that nothing really mattered to them anymore. He had a chance to escape from that concentration camp because in one ward they had found a little way out, and that one man said, "I have found a way out. Would you like to come with me? We can escape." He came back to his ward and said, "Look, my dear man, I am a privileged person, and I have decided to escape. A friend of mine has found a way." And all those in the ward started crying. "Are you going away? With whom can we really pour out our woes and ills? To whom can we tell our pains and misery? So far we could weep on your shoulder. Hereafter, on whom?" And he said, "Well, if you need me, I'll stay back." And he stayed back, giving hope to them. And that changed everything. This decision to live for others. And I think this is ultimately the ground reality or the framework for the logotherapy he developed later after he came back. His findings are used to treat patients in depression and not allowing them to get into despair and end their life. To fight despair, the relationship with the loved one, or perhaps a task which one is called to do, matters a lot. He had a task to do. Dietrich Bonhoeffer also was in the Auschwitz or Dachau, I do not know, but he was there, one of the concentration camps, because he spoke vehemently against Hitler. And this man had a beloved, and he was hoping one day I will meet my beloved. That love that he cherished of that beloved kept him alive till finally he was killed by the SS men. Whatever it is, we are invited to live daily in our life that meaning and discern what life demands of us. For in choosing to hold on to meaning or purpose, one's life will unfold with beauty and lot of newness, freshness. Even if the road is difficult, we have the freedom to choose between hope and despair. That is our freedom. No one can chain it. Between stimulus and response, there's a big gap. Somebody can hit me, call me by names, but I can decide what response I would give. I have the freedom to choose. We can choose negativity, which is destructive, or positivity, which is constructive and edifying. We have the freedom to choose love rather than hate, and thus find purpose in our life and also help others to find it. In Christian scriptures, St. Paul narrates his experiences of suffering, and he says, "Yet I rejoice." One can be still joyful even in suffering, even in the face of death. In his letter to the Romans, he writes, "We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that our suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us." St. Peter also in the scriptures, New Testament, invites the Christians to give a reason of the hope they have. He writes, "In your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame." Unquote. What are these two stalwarts of the Christian church, the princes of the church, are saying to us? Ultimately, you can name God as Christ or any other name according to your faith tradition. If only you can hook your life to that, or allow God to hook his life to yours, or with the divine, and we pray to that God we believe in, it will bring us really a great hope in all painful situations. As this is an organization, seminar organized by the Christian Philosophers, I intend to point, as Christians, we hope in eternal life, life with God, and Hinduism also speaks about going to the Devas. Buddhism speaks, so also Jainism, of nirvana, kaivalya, something much beyond you, what you cannot achieve by your own forces. Even Muslims focus on the life with God. Hindus speak of moksha. Between our birth and death, we are pilgrims of hope, as Pope Francis has put it. Pope Francis writes in his bull of indiction of the Jubilee, "Everyone knows what it is to hope. In the heart of each person, hope dwells as the desire and expectation of things to come, despite our not knowing what the future may be. In Christian faith, God's word helps us find reasons for that hope." Professor Dharma quoted Bhagavad Upanishads, and that also brings a lot of hope, because there is something that connects us with the divine. It is a human experience that everyone suffers, but how one handles suffering depends on what one hopes for. Viktor Frankl would give a principle to handle suffering, a principle he had drawn from Friedrich Nietzsche. That is, he who has a why to live, why in italics, he who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow, any type of suffering one can bear if you know why you want to live. It means that with a strong purpose, people can overcome almost anything that life can throw at us. Pope Benedict XVI in Spe Salvi, written particularly on hope, calls suffering as the setting for learning hope. It is a setting, it's a platform where we can learn hope. I quote one little sentence from him. "Only the great certitude of hope that my own life and history in general, despite all failures, are held firm by the indestructible power of love, and that this gives them their meaning and importance. Only this kind of hope can then give the courage to act and to persevere." So the basic reality that gives me hope is that I am loved. I am loved. I am cherished. I am precious to someone, and for whose sake I want to live. That one, that love could be anyone, God, human being, any person. As I said, British Bonhoeffer had its beloved. Viktor Frankl wanted to meet his father, mother, wife, son. He wanted to meet, but knew that they are dead. By some means he knew. Still, he had the hope that he wanted to meet. In Christian faith, we call it love of Christ that urges us to persevere in the midst of all adversity and trials. This deeper knowledge produces in us endurance and patience. In this frenetic world where there is a lot of self-centeredness and unhappiness, hope can direct our gaze to meaningful life. If we freely choose to be in relationship with God, the way we believe in the God we really connect with, and with others, and with the whole of creation, we have a wonderful example of this intense, multifaceted relationship in the person of Saint Francis of Assisi. So, what is hope? It is a sure and confident expectation of receiving what God has promised us in the future. The book that has been given to us as a chapter, a little reflection, he says, what he experienced in Sydney, for example, a taxi driver, a Muslim, was talking to him and telling him of the relationship with the divine, that infinite, that gave him hope to work hard. I think every heart is longing for that one reality. Today, I'm sure you are all here to have a great reflection, and tomorrow as well. And hope is the anchor of our life. Let it really, I feel a kind of an anchor at the picture there. Hope as an anchor that keeps us strong. I have a little anecdote before I conclude. There's a little place well barricaded with long, high walls where many patients with leprosy were abandoned there. Anybody having a leprosy patient would abandon that person in that, however beloved he is or she is. And these would fight and yell at each other, kick each other, except one person. That one person would whistle and sing and dance the whole day. And the others did not know. How is it? We are all abandoned here. Unwanted people, useless, hopeless, helpless. How is that this particular person alone is joyful and whistling and singing, dancing? And they wanted to find out the secret. So they followed his trail. Wherever he went, somebody spied on him to find out where is he going, what is he doing. And slowly, around 6 o'clock in the evening, this man, when at dusk, slowly climbed up on the walls of that enclosure. And from far, he sees a woman coming. Slowly, they exchange the looks. They don't talk to each other. Look at each other, they smile and communicate through their silence. And she goes back and he comes back again, whistling. And the following day, the same. And the third day, every day, that one person helps him to sing and dance. I think we all must cherish this kind of relationship, and that relationship that enhances. I conclude with a beautiful phrase from Julian of Norwich, a 14th century mystic. All shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. Life has plenty of challenges, many things to talk negatively and to be despaired about. But there is someone to whom I belong, and that someone loves me regardless of my failures, regardless of my difficulties and weaknesses, that someone to whom I belong, I vow my allegiance and love. And with that love, I love everyone. God bless you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, dear Bishop, for your inspiring message, hope. Now I kindly request our dear rector to come forward and present mementos as a token of our appreciation to Most Reverend Dr. Peter Paul Saldana, Bishop of Mangalore. To Professor P.L. Dharma, Vice Chancellor of Mangalore University, Dr. Parinita ma'am, the keynote speaker, and I request the director and the students and the staff of Sandesha Institute come forward and receive a token of love from us, rector. Yes, kindly be seated. Dear friends, we have finished the first part of the program. As we conclude this segment, I kindly request our esteemed guests to take their seats in the front for the upcoming keynote address. Thank you for your cooperation.
Good morning to all of you, members of the audience, callers, Reverend Bishop, teachers, friends. First of all, I think I would like to thank the organizers of this seminar for inviting me to deliver this keynote address. I thank them for their choice of someone outside the fold to speak on this occasion. I do not belong to the fold in two ways. I'm neither a student nor a scholar of philosophy, nor am I a Christian with regard to my religion. I do not know if I'm befitting of this choice. When I read the titles of the papers that are going to be presented in the seminar, I was rather daunted, and my first response to the invitation was a refusal because I felt that I did not have the credentials to be the keynote speaker in a seminar in which the focus is essentially philosophical. But I was persuaded later to accept this invitation because I felt that through my presence, maybe a dialogue may become possible. A dialogue on how hope has been understood and theorized across cultures and histories and disciplines. A dialogue on how the idea of hope and the belief in hope have been sustained and deployed under different and difficult conditions. On how the belief has been transformed into social and political action that has enabled the survival and defense of individuals and institutions and communities against the onslaught of powerful political and ideological regimes. I felt that such a dialogue, if it were to be interdisciplinary and interreligious, could provide us with a more nuanced theory and practice of hope. In recent times, I have increasingly taken recourse to hope in order to sustain myself in my personal and professional life without succumbing to despair. I have also heard the word hope being used on multiple occasions by people who have stood up for persecuted and marginalized values when they have spoken of their struggles. Hence, this invitation provided me with an opportunity to sit down and contemplate and unpack the meaning of hope for me personally as well as for the history within which I live. My presentation will not be scholarly in the traditional academic sense and will not follow the protocols of academic research. Rather, I will be speaking from that intersectional location where my personal experience, the history of my reading and teaching and scholarship, and my embeddedness in larger social and political and regional communities come together to generate a historically specific and contingent articulation of what it means to hope and the need for hope in our times. But first of all, I will begin with what Pope Francis has said about hope and its importance in the present on the occasion of declaring 2025 as the Jubilee year in which hope will be celebrated and consciously practiced as a central Christian value. I will try to sum up and quote what I consider to be central to Pope Francis' message on hope and the necessity of hope, as articulated in his papal bull. I consider this to be important and preliminary to what I am going to say, because in a sense, my own articulations on hope, and I think much of what is going to be said in the next 2 days will be in response to what Pope Francis has said on hope. In the papal bull titled Spes non confundi, meaning hope does not disappoint, Pope Francis speaks of what it means to hope. He begins by saying, I'll be quoting without marking those quotation marks. Everyone knows what is it to hope. In the heart of each person, hope dwells as the desire and expectation of good things to come, despite our not knowing what the future may bring. He says that in the course of the Jubilee year of 2025, every effort should be made to enable the people of God to participate fully in its proclamation of hope, in God's grace, and in the signs that attest to its efficacy. In addition to finding hope in God's grace, we are also called to discover hope in the signs of the times that the Lord gives us. We need to recognize the immense goodness present in our world, lest we be tempted to think ourselves overwhelmed by evil and violence. The signs of the times, which include the yearning of human hearts in need of God's saving presence, ought to become the signs of hope. Pope Francis then goes on to enumerate these signs of hope. He sees the signs of hope in the following longings, feelings, and actions of human beings. They are the desire for peace in our world, which once more finds itself immersed in the tragedy of war, having enthusiasm for life and a readiness to share it, demanding dignified conditions for those in prison, respect for their human rights, and above all, the abolition of the death penalty, a provision at odds with Christian faith and one that eliminates all hope of forgiveness and rehabilitation. Inclusive attention to all those in particularly difficult situations who experience their own weaknesses and limitations, especially those affected by illness or disabilities that severely restrict their personal independence and freedom. Care and concern for adolescents, students, and young couples, the rising generation who are the embodiment of hope. The concern for migrants who leave their homelands behind in search of a better life for themselves and for their families. The Pope says that their expectations must not be frustrated by prejudice and rejection. A spirit of welcome which embraces everyone with respect in his or her dignity should be accompanied by a sense of responsibility, lest anyone be denied the right to a dignified existence. The elderly, who frequently feel lonely and abandoned, also deserve signs of hope. Pope Francis speaks powerfully and with deep anguish about the need of hope for the poor. He writes, I ask with all my heart that hope be granted to the billions of the poor who often lack the essentials of life. Before the constant tide of new forms of impoverishment, we can easily grow inured and resigned. Yet, we must not close our eyes to the dramatic situations that we now encounter all around us, not only in certain parts of the world. It is scandalous that in a world possessed of immense resources, destined largely to producing weapons, the poor continue to be the majority of the planet's population, billions of people. Hunger is a scandal, an open wound in the body of our humanity. And it summons all of us to a serious examination of conscience. I renew my appeal that with the money spent on weapons and other military expenditures, let us establish a global fund that can finally put an end to hunger and favor development in the impoverished countries, so that their citizens will not resort to violent or illusory situations or have to leave their countries in order to seek a more dignified life. The Pope appeals to affluent countries to forgive the debts of countries that will never be able to repay them. He says that more than a question of generosity, this is a matter of justice. It is made all the more serious today by a new form of injustice which we increasingly recognize, namely that a true ecological debt exists, particularly between the global north and south, connected to commercial imbalances with effects on the environment and the disproportionate use of natural resources by certain countries over long periods of time. As sacred scripture teaches, the earth is the Lord's and all of us dwell in it as aliens and tenants. If we really wish to prepare a path of peace in our world, let us commit ourselves to remedying the remote causes of injustice, settling in unjust and unpayable debts, and feeding the hungry. Pope Francis goes on to say that Christian hope is founded on the certainty of eternal life promised by the grace of Christ and imparted through baptism. To quote his words, Christian hope consists precisely in this, that in facing death, which appears to be the end of everything, we have the certainty that, thanks to the grace of Christ, imparted to us in the baptism, life is changed and ended forever. Buried with Christ in baptism, we receive in his resurrection the gift of a new life that breaks down the walls of death, making it a passage to eternity. So I will end my quoting from the Pope. Today, I would like to speak of hope from a this worldly point of view. How can we theorize hope, which is a belief in a better future, as being embedded and emanating from the processes of embodied existence? What does it mean to hope without belief in a transcendental power which promises grace and an eternal life to come? How can we think of hope as a belief which is founded on the existence of human agency and which enables the exercise of that agency in shaping human history? Would the elimination of the presence of the transcendental from the origins and rationale for the existence of hope radically alter our understanding of the necessity of hope, our practices of hope, and the ends towards which the practice of hope is aimed? In what ways do we recast hope when we remove it from the realm of religion? How do we unpack the social processes that generate the need for hope as well as provide the framework within which hope can be legibilized and organized into social action? These are some of the questions with which I will begin. From a this worldly point of view, hope is a belief that human life is not governed by necessity. Hope assumes that the human condition is changeable. Hope is sustained by a recognition that what at a certain point in human history was accepted as the given unchangeable fact of human existence has been questioned or dismantled or destroyed through human agency. Thus, hope bases itself on faith in the possibility of a future that can be humanly accomplished. Belief in human agency is central to hope. Hope is thus a way of organizing the future and the belief that such an organization of the future is humanly possible. When that future is organized with the intention of enhancing human life and the web of life within which and to which human life is linked, then hope becomes a tremendously altruistic and deeply humane power and project. Our conception of what constitutes human good may vary historically, but at any historical point, any particular point in human history, it may be shared by those who range across the spectrum of belief, ranging from theism to atheism. Despite the differences in our social, religious, political, geographical location, our ideal of human good may overlap and intersect with each other. Today, I will speak of hope as being necessitated by the biological and social condition of being human. The reciprocal interdependence of all that exists in our world shapes the agency through which hope is and can be put into practice. The practice of hope and the transformative possibilities of this practice are embedded in and shaped by the historical conditions that both necessitate as well as generate hope. Hence, the necessities and possibilities of hope are always framed into legibility through the grids of intelligibility that are historically and culturally given. But the power of hope lies in its ability to rupture the skin of the socially normal and normative and organize a radically new human future with the resources available in the historical present. This belief in the miraculous strength and power of hope is, I think, shared by those who believe in the existence of a transcendental power and those who do not. The social conditions under which hope is necessitated may be many. The oppressions experienced by individuals and communities, however differently these oppressions may be experienced, are foundational to generating the need for hope. These oppressions can be of many kinds. Hence, there can be many ways in which and many situations in which hope is experienced. Hope can be experienced as a rupture in the normality of the familiar. Hope can emerge as a radical possibility of restructuring the social and political ordering of the world. It can erupt as a breach in the legality of the officially mandated protocols of social living. Hope can emerge at a point in time when the quotidian timetabling of the life of the individual and the community is disrupted, and a new temporality for structuring social existence has to be sought. It can also be a quiet pause between the present that has become unlivable and the future that is yet to be lived. It is that which sustains the plodding monotony of an oppressively routinized life, which seems to be endless and closed. It is hope that continually reminds us of the endurance of the human species while we struggle to accept the inevitability of our personal vulnerability to disease and death. But hope has to materialize in the form of transformative human action if it has to release us from the destructive power of socio-political and biological constraints. Hope is generated at that intersection of dissent and discomfort with our material conditions of existence and the historical possibilities of changing those material conditions. Hope is a part of the transformative process set in motion by this intersection. How does hope emerge at that interstitial space of history, opening up new possibilities of embodied being for us? Hope can be generated and shaped by an epistemological shift that results from a confrontation with new cultures, religions, and knowledges. Such a confrontation puts into disarray our familiar modes of socio-corporeal existence. Hope emerges through a meeting with the other, with strangeness that makes the familiar unfamiliar. Such a defamiliarization of the familiar releases from our tied downness to the common sense of our present. It makes us recognize human reality as a construct and places hope in the instrumental power of human agency to reconstruct human social existence in more enabling ways. In the context of our own history as a nation, colonialism provided us with such a transformative confrontation. The entry of Protestant Christianity alongside and through colonialism brought the hope of a radical equality into a society that was structured through the hierarchies of caste. I would like to illustrate this through the example of Pandita Ramabai. An extraordinary woman of her times, Pandita Ramabai lived in the latter half of the 19th century and the early decades of the 20th century. The exceptional circumstances of her life did not allow her to be rooted within any socio-religious space that existed in her world and denied her the certainties that come with such a sense of belonging. Her early life was nomadic as it was spent traveling across India and later England and across America. This, in conjunction with the difficult circumstances of her life, forced her to inhabit radically disjunctive socio-cultural, experiential spaces simultaneously. To be incessantly traveling is to be pushed into continually reimagining and remaking the templates which naturalize and normalize the practices of embodied existence. It is to dwell in the interstices of the familiar and the yet to be made familiar. It is from these liminal locations that Ramabai contoured a spiritual interiority centered on her personal, emotional, and spiritual needs that would simultaneously shape and legitimize the radical material and institutional transformation she sought to bring about in her society. Existing at the cusp of histories, cultures, and religions, not at ease within the institutionalized religions that she traversed, there emerged in her a radically alienated, critical seeing that shaped her hopes for and attempts at creating an egalitarian and humane world for those she considered the most oppressed in her society. The message of Christ, that is, of the equality of all men and women in the eyes of God, provided her with the foundational basis for her reforms. The Protestant Christian conception of a personal God, who was the God of love, appealed to Ramabai. Her hope for a better life for the upper caste Hindu widow and later the women of all castes was structured through this radically new conception of human equality that Christianity introduced to her. It shaped her social and institutional reform to ameliorate the social condition of women and resulted in the unique trajectory of her reform within the larger history of reform movements in 19th century India. The interpretative freedom offered by Protestant Christianity allowed Ramabai to contour a creatively accommodative spiritual interiority while straddling religions and sects. The Protestant belief in the priesthood of believers and the conception of the individual conscience as the location of individual choice, judgment, and personal and direct access to God empowered Ramabai to shape a spiritual interiority in consonance with her spiritual longings. Ramabai conceptualized this interiority as the location where Christ directly intervened into her life and where she was brought into his guiding presence. By making the spiritual interiority the location of a vision for humane practices and an egalitarian human relationships, Ramabai legitimized her reforms for the most marginalized in her society and affirmed their right to humane concern and care, thus redefining the category of the human in egalitarian ways. Hence, introduction to a new religion can provide that space outside the self, a space from where the familiarity of the socially constructed self can be observed, critiqued, and dismantled. It is this process that precedes the task of reconstructing the social moorings of the self such that reformed and enabling possibilities of existence can be put into place, enabling hoped-for materializations of the self and its possibilities of being. Hope can also emanate from the discomfort of the body. Hope can emanate as a response to the dis-ease of the body in the form of hunger or sickness or the precarity of marginalized and invisibilized existence. Hope emerges at the moment of disruption in the routines of embodied being, brought about by suffering, disappearance, and disease of the body. It can also emerge from the difficulty or impossibility of establishing and nurturing self-sustaining routines for the body that has been pushed to the edges of precarious living. Hope emerges through the struggle to transform the organization of the material conditions, social regulations, and political privileges in order to have equal access to the resources required to make the body socially and corporeally livable. Corporeal dis-ease reveals the vulnerability of bodies that have been exiled from the interdependent networks of support and mutuality between human beings. It is also the experiential location from where the hope of re-establishing these connections emerges with great urgency. The dis-ease of the body opens it to the vulnerability of becoming humane. The vulnerability that confronts the suffering body cracks open the imagined skin of the self, which acts as its self-enclosing boundary and makes it porous to the suffering of others and results in a self-dissolving experience of love, which is the foundation of hope. When pushed to the edge of survival, such a vulnerability might become transformed into anger and dissent. It is from this location of dissent that new possibilities of corporeality can be articulated and fought for. The Christian religion gives us an iconic representation of the body that exceeds its own vulnerability through a suffering transformed into a self-dissolving love. I am speaking of the iconic image of the crucified Christ. The crucified Christ becomes emblematic of a mercy and love that exceeds the human. Yet it also points towards the radical equality of bodies because they share a common vulnerability. That vulnerability can be both remembered and protected through the hope of putting into practice a society based on mutual care, concern, and support. That love becomes foundational to the imagining and putting into practice of communities that live through the structures and conventions of neighborliness and reciprocity. It generates the imagined and lived possibility of unenclosed shifting communities that are open to each other and overlapping each other. The icon of the crucified Christ and the narrative within which it is embedded becomes emblematic of a radical love that is not withdrawn even in the face of hate and cruelty and murder authorized by power. It is the belief in an experience of such love that enables the recognition that the embodied practices of human corporeality are complex, unbounded, and every body has a right to be protected and cherished. It is radical love that can give the hope of acceptance for those whose embodied practices of living are not legitimized or legibilized. It is radical love that gives the hope to defy the normalization of bodies through restrictive, punitive, and cruel measures. From the location of a marginalized body like that of the homosexual, the transgender, the intersex, disruptive questions emerge that undermine our common sense of the normatively sexed body. From the experience of persecution might emerge critiques of the normative body, and more importantly, the disaggregation of the body as a biological or social fact. Such a disaggregation generates the hope of a future with the freedom to reorganize the templates through which bodies can be lived in more diverse, liberating, and explorative ways. Such a rethinking of the body is itself an act of putting hope into practice. To hope is to believe in and work towards a world that is livable for all that lives in the world. The Pope speaks of taking care of the sick as a sign of hope. He is right. Hope is to care for the body despite its mortality and its proneness to decay and disease. It is to believe in the continuity of the human species, even as it is to cherish the individual human life, which is evanescent and fragile. However, hope also initiates the struggle to change the common sense of the body, through which it is sexed, gendered, and sexualized. Hope can emerge from the location of marginalized, immoralized, and illegalized bodies that give them the speech that stands up to the power that pushed their bodies to the edge of precarity. Thus, hope is materialized into action by our defiance of every action and regime and power that threatens the survival of the human species and the interconnected web of life to which it is interconnected and within which it exists. Hope leads us to question all wars of genocide and mass destruction. Hope leads us to question all laws that illegalize non-normative sexualities and genders. Hope leads us to take care of those we know are going to die, irrespective of all the care we give them. Hope is based on the protection and care of everything that sustains life and a rejection of everything that is inimical to life. Hope can also be experienced as a dogged persistence in the face of a closed future, a stubborn defiance of a political, social, or familial regime that is so pervasive and powerful that it's seemingly invincible. Hope can exist as a belief in change that sustains one through periods of intense personal and historical hopelessness. Such a belief could be based on the memory of a past that has survived brutalities and cruelties. Such a belief could be based on retrieving feeble and faint acts of unruliness against power that exists in the interstices of the present. Hope can manifest through the eccentric defiance of authority. Two contemporary examples of such a dogged persistence of hope in the present come to my mind. In the documentary film titled While We Watched, directed by Vinay Shukla and based on the professional and personal life of the journalist Ravish Kumar, there is a point where Ravish is shown giving his speech after having received the Ramon Magsaysay Award for 2019. He says, I quote, "Every award has a context. All of us at NDTV are going through tough times. When journalistic values in our industry have gone for a toss, it's hard to protect your values and continue believing them. Everyone tells us that our way of doing things is not relevant anymore, that we are outdated. But I believe good things never get old. They live forever, and that's why we should continue. Despite abuses and threats, what more can I say about this? Keep speaking and keep writing. It can get scary, but keep conquering your fears with practice. You keep doing your bit, and we'll keep doing ours. Thank you. Close quotes. He also says in that speech, at one point, he says, resistance is not a matter of choice. Prior to this, Ravish is shown receiving a bouquet of flowers for having been nominated for the award. A note which is inserted in the bouquet is later read out to the viewers, and it says, I quote again, Ravish is the voice of the voiceless. He has set an example for brave journalism, giving a ray of hope to the entire country. The documentary shows the dogged stubbornness with which Ravish continues his journalistic war against media-disseminated misinformation and hate, as his professional world disintegrates around him and his personal world is threatened with violence and hate. What sustains him is the dwindling professional community that sticks with him, the immediate past of a journalism that could speak truth to power and had the institutional support to do so, and the home and the family and community of friends and colleagues that stands in love and comradeship with him. Hope materializes through the practice of conquering fear because resistance is mandatory and not a choice. The documentary shows that hope is sustained through communities standing by each other or communities forming around a beacon which sustains their hope. Hope is made possible by establishing such solidarities through which power can be questioned. It is from these collectivities that a united language of speaking truth to power is organized and a new grammar of defiance is structured. Another contemporary instance of hope manifesting itself in defiance is the struggle by women in the Malayalam film industry, which led to the Hema Committee report. The lone act of a woman taking recourse to the law against a powerful patriarchal film industry, whose brutal force was instantiated through her organized rape by a powerful male actor, led to a community of women being formed around her to support her. That act of defiance could have resulted from a violation or egregiously violent act that it pushed the woman to a point where retaliation and resistance were the only possible responses. But that act of dangerously eccentric defiance led to a community of women forming around her, a community that spoke truth to power. The voice of that community revealed the unnatural grammar of the language through which power has normalized itself through brute strength and violence and threat. In an interview with the journalist Barka Dutt, Parvati Thiruvottu, a member of the Women's Collective in Cinema, says that it was hope that sustained the Women's Collective in this struggle. I quote from her, from that interview. It begins with Barka. This is Barka saying, let me start by asking, what does this moment feel like? It's been such a long fight for you, for others in this collective. I know you've been in it for nearly 5 years. You have been meeting with the members of the Kerala government. You yourself appeared before this panel. I think you called it somewhere a bittersweet moment. How would you describe what you are thinking and feeling right now? And Parvati replies, thanks, Barka. When the report came out, I was in a state of shock because I had completely given up hope for the last 4.5 years, and whoever had the vested interest in keeping the report under the carpet had made us beg and grovel for it. I genuinely had given up hope. The collective never does give up hope, and that I'm so grateful for. The fact that I have these women around me and we get to help each other and get back on track when we lose hope. Close quotes. Hope is reaffirmed and materializes into action when a community is formed through the experience and articulation of a common oppression. Such an articulation produces a strange new spectacle of the marginalized organizing themselves into public visibility. They converge to form a powerful group that is speaking what has hitherto remained unspeakable. When we hear that speech, we realize that silence is imposed by fear and not because there is an absence of speech. the spectacle of their speech and its dissemination creates a proximity between all those who have suffered from that silence and have been scattered and made lonely because of their invisibility. When some of those who have been invisibilized become visible, then the hope of visibility spreads to all those who have been made to suffer such a silence, to become aware that it is possible to speak and to be listened to, and that speech can disassemble and transform an existing world in which silence was normalized, is a great ray of hope. It builds communities and establishes strategies of rebellion. It shows that power was just a surface without depth that could pretend it had depth because we were made to believe so. That when fear is thrown away, the structures of power which generated the fear are also thrown away. That there is the possibility of alternative structures of proximity and association among the beleaguered and the powerless, which can vest them with immense power. That when they organize themselves into powerful communities, they can wrest speech and agency from the stranglehold of power and shape it to their needs. Hence, hope can be experienced as the linkages of communities that persist in the face of attempts to delegitimize and destroy the weak and the vulnerable. Such linkages could be experienced at the level of the smallest social unit, like the family, or through the formation of larger groups and communities. The courage to initiate such communities may be fueled through the memory or memorialization of immensely courageous communities in the past that have struggled and triumphed through solidarity. It is the coming together of such communities that new configurations of theory and practice can be generated. Such communities are formed at the points of confrontation and through the intersection of social locations. It is the coming together of differently marginalized communities. It is through that the defamiliarization takes place. The German playwright Bertolt Brecht coined the theatrical concept of Verfremdungseffekt, or defamiliarization. As a theatrical device, it was an attempt to alienate the audience from a perceptual normality structured through the historical common sense within which they lived. It was an attempt to startle the audience out of its routines of living and seeing, normalized and naturalized under their present economic and political conditions of existence. By theatricalizing events and actions and putting them within brackets and decoupling them from the familiarity of the perceptual conceptions of the historical present, they were made strange and initiated the astonishment that was the precursor to critical thinking. Such an astonishment led to what Brecht calls as critical thinking. Critical thinking, in turn, initiates a process of disassembling the socio-political structures that naturalize the present conditions of living. Such a dismantling opens the possibility of reassembling the social and economic relationships in more egalitarian and humane ways. Brecht's epic theater performs the structuring of social agency and stages the social props that support and enable such agency. Outside the theater, such a Verfremdungseffekt is forced upon us at those moments when differently marginalized socio-political locations intersect within our experiential world. When the banality and invisibility of routinized violence is spectacularized through its experiential defamiliarization and its momentary decontextualization from the routines within which it was normalized. When our experiential location is trespassed, overlapped, and seeped by grids of intelligibility that are simultaneously familiar as well as radically and critically unfamiliar, it leads to an epistemological rupture. From such ruptures, both dis-ease and hope are generated. The dis-ease with the normality into which we have been socialized, and the hope that comes from recognizing the historically contingent nature of this normality and the historical processes through which it has been manufactured and made ordinary. We realize that we can change the conditions of our existence in our world. We also discover that the social props and supports that are required to bring about that change can be built through our alliances with communities that share this dis-ease. We begin to hope in an open-ended history that can be shaped through human agency. I am fully in concurrence with the Pope's message of hope, and I read it as a message for the establishment of a humane and radically egalitarian society. a society structured through the reciprocity of care, concern, and mutuality of love and fraternity. I concur with the Pope's vision of a humane world and the personal, social, and political practices through which such a world can be achieved. The signs of hope in our times are the signs which indicate and reaffirm the human need and capacity to visualize and establish a world of radical equality and deep humanity. It signifies the existence of human agency shaped through a vision of a better human society, an agency that is instrumental in shaping human history in liberating ways. Where I differ from the Pope is that I see this history as envisioned and shaped through the material conditions and possibilities of human existence. I concede that human history has and can accommodate the hope that is based on the belief in a transcendental power named and shaped into God. The visualization of a transcendental power is a leap that we take into faith and hope. The faith through which we imagine and hold on to a perfection that is historically necessitated and constituted, but as yet absent in its imagined perfection in the present. Our recourse to hope in all its varied forms is necessitated and sanctioned by our attempts to create an equal and humane society. I am deeply touched by the Pope's message of hope because not only does it highlight and critique the inequalities of our present world, but it also speaks of the love and care and concern through which the most brutal and unacceptable inequalities of our times have to be confronted and healed. But I believe that we can only dream of, plan for, and strive towards establishing such a society from within the limits of our history and the limitations of our corporeality. We attempt to achieve the humane society through the errors, contingencies, and experiments of human history. And that history is open-ended and accommodative of many varieties of life, some of which Christianity might consider as sinful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for elaborating the hope through your keynote speech. Thank you so much. We must find time to stop and thank the people who make a difference in our lives. Here comes for the Reverend Dr. Ivan D'Souza, the chief organizer, and the local secretary to verbalize the words of gratitude for everyone who have made this inauguration a great success.
Wow, what a mixed feeling of happiness, sadness, and hope today. We know hope does not disappoint. You have been sitting here for so long, so my task is very short. Dear Bishop Peter Paul Saldana, our thanks to you for being the president of today's program and giving us a profound message. Thanks a million. Acknowledging the presence of Vice Chancellor and ACPI President, we thank Ma'am Parinita. What an incredibly comprehensive and thoroughly insightful your keynote address was. You were brilliant and amazing. Thanks, ma'am. Dr. Stephen Jayard, you have used your intelligence to edit the book on artificial intelligence. Thanks to you. I see the esteemed presence of many thinkers, priests, sisters, scholars, provincial superiors, directors, sisters, animators, lecturers, teachers, and many more. Nimagi tumba thanks. To media people, Suddhi Manaya Madhyama Mitrarige, Solmelu Dhanyavadagalu. Finally, without mentioning anyone's name in particular, we say a big thanks to all of you. Dev Barenkaro.
Thank you, dear Father Ivan, for verbalizing the words of thanks and meticulously organizing this ACPI conference. Pope Francis' words, we must fan the flame of hope that has been given us and help everyone to gain new strength and certainty by looking to the future with an open spirit, a trusting heart, and a far-sighted vision. May our conference contribute greatly to restoring a climate of hope and trust as a prelude to the renewal and rebirth that we so urgently desire. Thank you, everyone. Now, kindly rise and conclude this program by singing national anthem Jana Gana Mana. अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उच्चड़ बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे